This video will explore the world of gaming, a small history of LGBT characters, while also focusing on the online communities in games, how harassment and casual homophobia have become rampant all over the world, hoping to raise awareness about this growing problem and to seek understanding from those who have been a part of this cesspool of hate. Some may feel that LGBT content is being shoved down their throat. I am not sure of when this actually happens, but others have felt this before. Whether you have or not, please stick around. Firstly, I will look at harassment in online communities, while later on I will also look at representation in video games. Harassment has been inside online communities for a while now. I know from playing first-person shooters, there are a few people that may become sore losers. Many of you have probably played a game like Call of Duty or Overwatch, and you're in the voice chat when all of a sudden someone calls you gay, trying to use it as an insult, because for some reason gay is equivalent to weak or pathetic. Maybe you weren't the target, but you heard someone say faggot or queer, whether as a joke or trying to rile someone up. Why do people do this? Why is there an insistence on using words that have hurt actual people in the past? I needed to discover this in my research. I have come to understand that some people who do things, like the ones I mentioned before, tend to be defensive and are lashing out because they are afraid of being hurt. That is understandable, of course. People must understand, though. Their defense mechanisms can hurt others. Even if someone doesn't care about others' feelings, they probably should anyway if they are aware of their own. It only takes a few seconds to stop and think about what is being said. Take a deep breath and realize it shouldn't be said after all. I found a survey done by the Anti-Defamation League targeting Americans who played video games. It had 1,045 respondents. According to GLAAD.org, 1 in 3 LGBTQ gamers experienced harassment based on their identity in multiplayer games. Not only that, but in the ADL survey on video games all around the world, 53% reported that they have been harassed based on race, religion, sexual orientation, ability, gender, or gender identity. 1 in 5 of these people have avoided a game due to the problematic behavior exhibited by that game's players. The following picture shows the top 5 games that were noted to have the most harassment. As you can see clearly, all of these games are either battle arenas, battle royales, first-person shooters, and they all are multiplayer games. While the survey examined negative experience in games, it also asked about positive experiences, like making friends, finding a new interest, or discovering something new. Here you can see the picture that outlines each percentage of respondents who had some sort of positive experience when playing a video game. So, it's not all bad. Moreover, about 43% of the multiplayer games said that they quit a game after experiencing harassment, despite a previous positive experience. That is clearly showing that the harassment was enough to make them not come back to a game they had liked before. This is completely wrong and needs to change. In a 2010 article titled "From Bullies to Heroes: Homophobia in Video Games," it discusses homosexuality and video games, as well as homophobia in video games. It said that in a 2006 survey conducted by the University of Illinois, Jason Rockwood wanted to explore the social and behavioral demographics of GLBT video game players. The first of its kind, Rockwood hoped to prove that gay gamers did exist. This was the first time this was recognized. Jason felt that he had to establish that there is an audience for such games. Big surprise, there is. Homophobic gamers were found in online gaming communities. An overwhelming 52.7% of the study concluded that gaming communities are somewhat hostile to gay and lesbian gamers, while 14% would say the communities are very hostile. When asked how frequent players experienced homophobia, 42% said always or frequently, while 32.5% answered sometimes. Homophobia in this context meant derogatory language. While this has improved somewhat now in 2020, there are still some problems. Now I will be discussing some people's personal experiences and case studies. In Stacey Tucker's paper about griefing, she discusses many incidents with LGBT gamers related to harassment and unfair judgment. For example, in 2011, a lesbian had her Xbox Live profile banned due to displaying her sexuality. There is some bias here. While it could be argued no one needs to display their sexuality, what is the big deal? It's not as if she was trying to get attention. She was rather simply putting on an identifier, probably to find others like her. Christensen's Quake study in 2006 notes homophobic and sexually violent threats and acts against other players. Plus, one player explained that the use of homophobic speech wasn't intended to belittle GLBTQ people, but to belittle the skill of their opponent. Gay seems like a synonym of poor quality rather than queer, but it's not meant in a hurtful way. Once again, displaying the relationship where people associate gayness with weakness. A bisexual player in Activision's Blizzard's popular online first shooter game Overwatch, he reported being sick to his stomach after being subjected to transphobic and homophobic slurs. In a survey that I conducted myself, I asked people aged 16 and up questions about their experiences in online gaming, multiplayer settings, and everything in between. Out of the 55 responses I received, 43 had said that they heard a slur being used in an online setting. This shouldn't be surprising. About half of the respondents also admitted that they had experienced harassment in some way when playing a game. I surveyed those around me and those on the internet, likely across the nation or even another country. This isn't just a thing happening in America, this is a worldwide matter as well. Someone had said that they do not enter voice chat in games anymore due to harassment over their voice. Over a voice. This is messed up. Wouldn't you agree? Nobody would make fun of a disabled person for being unable to complete everything in a game, so why would anyone make fun of someone over something they cannot control? For example, like their sexuality. Various people are hurt by this, and it is time that it stops. In just talking to a few of my classmates and friends, I get the notion that certain genres of games have higher rates of toxicity and harassment. One particular genre I wanted to examine was the shooter genre. Many of these games have multiplayer online settings, basically where you can join a room or a server to play with others locally or globally. In games like Overwatch, Team Fortress 2, World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, and many others, there is voice chat. Normally, this is used to strategize, especially when playing with a team. Unfortunately, these chats can become filled with slurs and people fighting, getting angry at others for messing up and whatnot. This has led some people to not want to participate in voice chat because it's too much. I know for myself, when I played Overwatch in 2018, I would never go on voice chat. I felt too much pressure, and I also didn't want to deal with kids or harassment. After browsing a few forums where people have discussed whether having voice on is important, a good portion of people have their microphones off permanently. It seems most of these people do not want to deal with the stuff that some others may say. While a general consensus say that it is okay to have voice off, it can decrease your effectiveness in the game. It's time to stop this harassment. It isn't taken lightly anymore, not in this day and age. I was interested in how well companies who are well known in the gaming community deal with harassment. I did some research and found some notable results. Riot Games is known for publishing the famous League of Legends, having roughly 80 million members. At times it boasted having over 100 million players. They recognized in 2012 that many players had quit reporting toxic behavior. They knew they had to fix this problem and cut down on harassment. What did they do? The company employed staff members with PhDs in psychology and cognitive science to study behavior and create behavior profiles for tens of millions of users. Jeffrey Lin, the lead designer of Social Systems, said that they could not remove all the toxic players because it would not solve the problem. While 13% of the player base had participated in toxic, abusive behavior, another huge part of the harassment came from little comments thrown here and there. According to Slate.com, Riot switched off its default feature that allowed opposing players to chat with each other during games. Asking players to opt in to chatting instead led to a 30% drop in harassing behavior and a 35% rise in positive interactions. Riot also found a way to reduce recidivism rates among its harassing users by clearly spelling out its justification for suspending users over offensive comments instead of just quietly banning them. They directly called out those who were behaving badly, and this got a response. Many players apologized for their comments, not realizing how they impacted others. 280,000 members of the community reversed their offending status and became outstanding members of the community. Not only that, but they also added rating features for players to rate their behavior, ranging from good to needs improvement to avoid me. It seems with more responsibility put on the players, their actions are more concrete, and people recognize their actions do indeed have consequences. I have mentioned Overwatch a few times already, so it makes sense that I would include its company. Now, Overwatch has plenty of characters that are from a diverse group, whether it's race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or even if you're human or not. USA Today commented that Blizzard bans or suspends players that have a repeated pattern of bad behavior. This is all good. It is good that they are monitoring things and starting to do things that can have consequences for people who are inappropriate and just plain rude. I could go on and on about different companies, but I think my point has been reached. I have gone through details about personal experiences and how many people in the world are affected by harassment. Whether it is verbal or mental, it is harassment, and it should stop. Video games should be a source of fun and relaxation, especially for those who may not be able to live their best lives in the real world. The true fact is this: the average gamer is not heterosexual and male. This isn't to say any group is better than others. We are all equal. I am just simply saying that there is more to the world than just what one may know, and that is okay. While harassment is a huge problem in the gaming world, it is not the only issue that is related to the LGBT community. Representation is also a problem in video games. Again, I must reiterate that this is not an attack on anybody. This isn't a heavy demand, it is just a request that makes sense. We are all humans on this planet after all. Many people wonder, what exactly is the big deal about representation? Some have complained on forums like user Bastal on BioWare's forums. He had stated that the company should cater to the biggest majority, straight men, since that is about 80% of the players. Like many others, Bastal feels his masculinity is threatened in a place where he can exercise it and even be celebrated for it. Some may see homosexuality as a threat to masculinity since it is stereotyped as feminine. A perfect response to this is BioWare's David Gator, a writer and game designer who states their goal. The romances in the game are not for the straight male gamer, they're for everyone. We have a lot of fans, many of whom are neither straight nor male, and they deserve no less attention. I would question anyone deciding they speak for the straight male gamer just as much as someone claiming they speak for all RPG fans, all female fans, or even all gay fans. You can write it off as political correctness if you wish, but the truth is that privilege always lies with the majority. They're so used to being catered to that they see the lack of catering as an imbalance, and the person who says that the only way to please them is to restrict options for others is, if you ask me, the one who deserves it least. And that's my opinion expressed as politely as possible. Bully is a popular game that came out on October 17, 2006 for PlayStation 2. Developed by Rockstar Vancouver, it stars a boy named Jimmy Hopkins where you play as him in an imaginary boarding school. You complete various tasks throughout the school day. Some can be on the more social side. While in one task you can get chocolates for a girl in order to be able to kiss her, the option to kiss a boy is also available. As you can imagine, this caused a controversy with parents especially. It was an outrage, but it doesn't really make sense. How is it gross? Is it grosser than gore or murder that is prevalent in plenty of games? I believe it's all about balance. Where are the LGBT characters? A huge majority of LGBT characters can be found in games with romantic subtext or interactive romance games. Many of these characters, especially those who are bisexual or transgender, have been in the background of games, or NPCs, non-playable characters. They are usually barely developed or fulfill one trope. They may then be seen as just a joke. I searched on Google, is there a main transgender character in a video game? I knew from the games I played there may be one or two trans characters who were NPCs. I did not know if there had even been a game with a main character that is transgender. Not until 2019, when Xbox released a trailer for the game Tell Me Why, published by Don't Nod Studios, who also happened to partner with GLAD. This game is the first mainstream one created by a popular company that features Tyler, a lead character who is a trans man. He has transitioned from female to male. He is also voiced by a trans man as well, which is pretty cool. I remember now, looking at that trailer on YouTube, I thought it was a pretty cool game concept. It had a huge dislike count. Looking at it right now, it has a ratio of likes to dislikes of 6.3 to 2.3k, which isn't terrible, but there is definitely some resistance to this. I didn't even really question the characters. I was more interested in the story of the game. When I first looked at this video last year, there were a bunch of comments insulting Xbox and saying it is going to crap. This is not forcing anything on anyone, though. One does not have to play the game. They can just ignore it if they want to. I suggest playing it anyways, though. One may be pleasantly surprised. After looking at that, I got curious about the history of characters. I found this statistic. In 2018, Games Radar's Sam Greer poured through thousands of gaming titles and found 179 games with any LGBT representation. Of those 179 games, only 83 have queer characters who are playable characters, and of those playable characters, only 8 feature a main character who is explicitly pre-written as queer, as opposed to them being queer as a character creation option. This should say it all. Most of these characters are just side characters, or not even playable at all. This also raises a problem because some may justify why representation isn't needed using these examples. People who see badly written characters and those who are just tropes or jokes will paint a bad picture in people's minds. Let's go through a list of some popular LGBT characters from games that have small and huge followings. Starting off this list is Ellie from The Last of Us. Ellie comes from a very famous video game. I really enjoyed this game and loved Ellie and Joel as I played it. The world was rich and consistent, and I felt the feelings of despair as we traveled in a terrible world. I also played the DLC where it is revealed that Ellie, in fact, does like girls. I was a little surprised, like others, but I didn't care at all. I loved it. It really brought another depth into Ellie's character for me. She's a complete badass too, and so what if she likes girls? It's just another fact of life in this world, just like the fact that zombies exist in there. BioWare is a company that is known for Dragon Age and Mass Effect games. I won't complicate this with their history, but it should be known that they expertly combine player interaction with an engaging story. You usually play as yourself, or rather an avatar that is a representation of you. Your choices impact the game and the story, as well as the other people, the characters within. As it is another aspect of life, there are romance options for everyone, characters ranging from being straight, gay, or lesbian, or sometimes bisexual. I would like to highlight just two characters from these series. They are both from Dragon Age Inquisition, Sarah and Dorian Pavis. Dorian has been criticized to be a stereotype of gay men and the fact that his storyline revolves around him being gay, but it isn't true. He has one scene with his father and your player character, and it is a tense scene. Afterwards, he confides in you that he was supposed to marry a woman for the family, but he refused because he likes men. His father was going to attempt magic to turn him into a more accepting guy, but I believe this is highlighting how terrible that situation is in general, rather than just focusing on the homophobia. He is sassy at times and is a magician, but that doesn't mean that he is a stereotype. Sometimes characters can fall into stereotypes, but that is bound to happen. Sarah is a lesbian, but is disliked somewhat because of her childish behavior, and the fact that she doesn't really try to understand your beliefs. This can be debated heavily, though. I'm not saying everyone has to like Sarah. You don't have to like every LGBT character in games, just like you don't have to like every straight character in games. Real people are complex, and some you will not get along with. This is just another fact of life. To see it reflected in certain games is interesting to see. For 2015, Life is Strange is an interactive series by Don't Nod Studios. The main character is Max Caulfield, and she returns to her hometown and discovers she has time-bending powers. While you, playing as Max, can be interested romantically in Warren, a classmate, you can also kiss her longtime best friend, Chloe Price. It is also noticeable that Chloe has a relationship with two girls throughout the entirety of these games. She could be lesbian or bisexual, but definitely is attracted to women at the least. Max and Chloe's friendship and romance is really groundbreaking and is central to the game's story. It concludes in an emotional end, and these two have problems for sure, but they are more realistic that way. You may dislike them sometimes when they are irrational, but this makes them more human and allows you to empathize with them way more. Next, I would like to acknowledge Overwatch and its characters. Tracer is the well-known character from this game, especially since she is on the cover of the game disc for PS4. She is a lesbian. In Overwatch, it is a team-based shooter where in one game mode you play with 5 other people on a team to secure the payload to a given destination on a map. Of course, there is another 6-person team fighting against you, trying to stop you. A cool thing in Overwatch is that there are many roles to fill, ranging from damage dealers, tanks, and support. Each character is special in their own way, and now recently another character has been revealed as gay. That is Soldier 76, the whitest and one of the toughest older characters from the game. This has forced people to acknowledge that LGBT people do exist, and that they are just as valuable as any other straight person. Some backlash was received, especially since Soldier doesn't seem gay, but of course that is the point. Gay people can come from any origin, be rich or poor, they can be badass and tough as well. More recently, The Outer Worlds is a game that came out in October of 2019. Well, it's a space adventure where you are a captain and you recruit various people. One of these people is Parvati, a sweet girl who is romantically attracted to women. Not only that, but she is asexual. It has been confirmed by the writers of the game, and they fully intended this to be her journey. Her asexuality is only mentioned once, but it's done subtly enough that most can catch the clue. Some may miss it, but I know when I played it, I realized it pretty quickly. Parvati is loved by nearly everyone in the game's community. I know she is my favorite character from this game. Some will have their favorites because they are LGBT, but that is okay. An Asian person enjoying a character in a game because they are Asian and is a representation of them totally makes sense. Why is it okay for one of these, but not the other? Is it really hurting anybody if an asexual person loves Parvati for being asexual? Parvati is fully developed too, and a wonderful character. That is just a bonus. Yes, I've talked about quite a few different characters and how they have been received by their respective communities, but what does it all mean? While it has improved somewhat over the last decade, there can always be more. It needs to be stated that this isn't a demand or a wild request. Nobody is demanding that the gays take over. People just want to see people like them in the games they play. More importantly, for them to be written well and beautifully enough to be just as amazing as any straight character someone might like on screen. Imagine the reverse. All the popular fun games contain gay characters, and finally one day a straight character comes up. Instead of acceptance, everyone denies this character and insults people who like them. Exactly. That would be ridiculous. Representation is important for everyone in this world. At this point, I have reached the end of the information I have collected. I have talked about representation and how it is important, as well as how characters may be perceived. At the end of the day, someone watching this may still decide to be mean. The world we live in is already hard enough. I believe we all need to come together and have fun with each other in our fantasy worlds. I have decided to take a positive approach and have fun with others, and that's what really matters at the end of the day. I hope you enjoyed this video, maybe even learned something new. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.